home to home and can stay home when they're ill. Where owners and operators are held accountable for their neglect now. And let's have Premier Ford start this by revoking Bill 218 that he put in place in November 2020 to protect owners from accountability and lawsuits. Premier Ford and Minister of Long-Term Care Rod Phillips, this is how it's going to be. Not in 4 years, not in 10. You've had plenty of time to strengthen that iron ring you mentioned and to follow what's already in the Long-Term Care Act. You may fool some people, but you're not fooling us. Care can't wait.
You know, listening to these families of residents, they're so articulate, they're so committed, and even when their loved ones have died, they're staying on to fight for everyone else. The deepest respect, I know it's painful, but the deepest respect and appreciation for you fighting for all of Ontario and for the future of our province. Thank you all so very, very much. You're an impressive crowd. And actually, we have two very articulate, very impressive women coming. Will you come up, you two? But just very quickly, I see that Andrea Horvath, this is not scheduled, and we're nonpartisan, as you know, but I see that I can't go by without recognizing that Andrea Horvath, who's the leader of the NDP, has come out to say hello, and Sarah Singh, who's the long-term care critic. Did you want to just come up and say hi? This is, and is John Fraser here, perchance? Is John Fraser here? Okay, if he comes out, we'll introduce him.
Thanks very much, Natalie. Look, I'm not going to take the time here because it's your voices that are the most important. I just want to say I'm proud to be here with Sarah Singh, our critic, but also a number of our other MPPs, Wayne Gates from Niagara, Amart Stiles from Davenport, Suze Morrison from Toronto Centre, Joel Hardin from Ottawa Centre, Saul Mamakwa from Quintanong, Butila Carpoche from Parkdale High Park. And why are we here? We're here to tell you we will never stop fighting with you and for you, for our loved ones, and fixing our long-term care system is our priority. We have a plan. Let's make that plan a reality. Get the profits out, get the care up, give people decent work, and we will be able to be proud in Ontario of our system of caring for our seniors, both long-term care and home care. Thank you all so much. I know it's been a tragic couple years for a lot of you, and we're never going to stop fighting with you. Thank you. I don't mean fighting with you. I mean fighting alongside you. Thanks for being here, folks. Important. It's very important.
And I want to thank you for taking the time and coming out. We actually didn't invite politicians to speak, but if Stephen Del Duca and John Fraser come down, we will introduce them as well. And we thank you for standing up for this repeatedly in the legislature and holding the line on these key issues: end of for-profit long-term care, improving the care levels and the staffing levels, ensuring accountability, finally real accountability for the operators. These things have to happen. We appreciate all of your very hard work on behalf of all of us. There's a wasp. Okay, and so now, without any further ado, Kathy Parks, who lost her dad at Orchard Villa, and who has gone on to advocate as the spokesperson for the families of Orchard Villa, 71 families who lost their loved ones. Melissa Miller, who is a lawyer, an advocate on behalf of many, many families, and following Dr. Vivian Stamatopoulos, an advocate, a fierce advocate for long-term care. Go ahead, Kathy, first.
Thanks, Natalie, and thank you for everyone who's here. Thank you for the Ontario Health Coalition for putting this together. I'm here with Melissa and Vivian. We're Canadians for Long-Term Care, and we've been fighting nationally for national standards as well. 2 years ago, my family received the news that my father had been accepted into Orchard Villa Long-Term Care 2 years ago this month. After multiple falls that had left him waiting in hospital hallways for care and stitches, we were relieved at the thought that he would finally be moving to a place where he would get the kind of care he needed. Looking back, none of us realized how naive that thought was. The first 4 months and 2 weeks of my father's life at Orchard Villa were filled with multiple trips to the hospital. UTIs, catheters incorrectly placed, staff abuse, being left undressed in his bed, lowered to the ground, left unfed for at least 24 hours, and that was before the pandemic hit. Despite everything, my father made the best of things. He made friends and he tried to help others in any way that he could. The hardest part of his stay at Orchard Villa was the last 2 weeks of his life. And it's something that sits with me every day. To watch my father slowly decline to the point where he could no longer talk, where his last words were whispered, "I love you." And it's upsetting, even still today. I could see him non-responsive through his window, where I had this overwhelming feeling of, "Kathy, I need you, please help me." And there I was, blocked at every turn from helping my father, kept away even at his last breath. It pains me every time that I have to remember and talk about the way my father died, as you can see. I wish I didn't have to speak about his death publicly anymore. But I do it because he's one of the thousands who suffered needlessly and because nothing has changed. So I'll keep telling his story and I'll keep speaking because the fact that his story could be any one of us. And it's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Last week I was speaking with a friend who owns a daycare. We talked about the rules around daycare, the infractions that may happen and what they mean. My friend told me that surprise inspections were common. The smallest problem could result in fines, and in some cases the Ministry of Education will come in and actually take over the license for a year. And when I explained the differences in long-term care, she said, "But why don't they have laws in place to help these things from happening?" But they do. They do, and they just don't enforce them. Our conversations ended with my friend telling me, "Oh, but you know what, there's one more thing. There's actually no real profit in daycare." And there you have your difference. This is the difference between how we treat the two most vulnerable sectors in our society. Profits in long-term care are like an infection in a wound. And we all know that unless you clean the infection out, the wound will never heal.
Right on.
We don't need flowery words. We don't need empty promises. We don't need crocodile tears because none of them will deal with the complete overhaul that is needed in long-term care. Since my father's death, this government has seemingly gone above and beyond to put obstacles in families' way. They have put obstacles in my way. I watched the comments from our premier last year after the military reports became public, the statements that bad actors would be held accountable with tears in his eyes. And here we are over a year later, and what's been done? In fact, instead of holding the worst homes accountable, this government passed Bill 218, further protecting for-profits and themselves. And instead of fines, we see some of the worst homes being granted licenses and extra beds. The simple truth is, these words mean nothing without action. Southbridge Care, the owners of Orchard Villa, have applied for a 30-year license and 87-bed extension for its Pickering location, where my father died.
Shame.
While the decision on this license hasn't been made public yet, so many other homes have been granted theirs despite the atrocities that we have witnessed over the past 18 months. And I ask you, where does it end? I'm here today to tell my father's story, to rise up for long-term care, and I'm still speaking on behalf of the families of Orchard Villa and potentially for every family member who has had to endure the same heartbreak as me, but they cannot speak because it hurts so much. It's been very clear what needs to be done, and now we just need some political will and less talk and more doing. 2 years ago, I cried for several nights in a row as we moved my father into Orchard Villa. I cried because of the state of the home. I cried because I knew this would be his last home that he would be in before he died. I cried because I wish I could do more. Little did I know that soon I would be crying at how painfully he died. That in the end, a whispered "I loved you" would be the last bit of my father I would ever have. I was kept even from holding his hand as he took his last breath. We have to fix this because the only way that we can do it is together, and we have to be louder, and we have to stop what's happening in long-term care. If not now, then when? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm doing double duty here. My name is Melissa Miller, and I am so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have Kathy and Dr. Vivian on my side, and to be working with all you wonderful people at the Ontario Health Coalition, because we all want the same thing. We all want transparency, accountability, security, and safety for our families, our loved ones in long-term care. As a lawyer, I represent families who are seeking justice and accountability as a result of abuse and neglect in our long-term care homes here in Ontario. And as Kathy said, we've started Canadians for Long-Term Care to lobby our federal government to get national standards. And you know why we started that? Because we weren't getting anywhere with this government. And we had to go above and beyond to try to get some semblance of accountability nationally. We all know that COVID itself is not responsible for all the deaths in our long-term care homes. It only highlighted the seriously broken system that's already here. I have read thousands of Ministry of Long-Term Care reports. I've read the military reports from last year, the Auditor General's report, the Long-Term Care Commission report, and most of the transcripts. I'm still catching up on the rest. There's a lot. And I keep hearing the same thing over and over and over. The system is broken and we need change. It is never acceptable that someone should die from malnutrition or dehydration, that anyone should live among cockroaches and sit in their own filth without being bathed, especially in their golden years and while being alone. Even the injuries I hear about, falls, wounds, bed sores, pressure ulcers, bruises, fractures, constant, because staff don't have enough time to complete their job and do it well the way they want to. And they leave home at the end of the day feeling guilty and knowing that they didn't do what they wanted to do, and that is the best job to take care of the people who live there. We've heard so many times from the expert Pat Armstrong that the conditions of work are the conditions of care, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that that is true in every single one of the several hundred cases that I am currently still litigating pre and during the pandemic. And I know my phone's not going to stop ringing after this is all over, because these problems have not been corrected. Our government, as we've heard countless times today, has promised to hold bad actors to account. We've heard repeatedly that this was going to happen. We have the laws in place right now to make that happen. And nothing's happened. No fines, no revoked licenses. We have Bill 218. Rod Phillips has made some announcements lately. You know what he forgot? Revoking Bill 218. You know the only thing that's happened, and I told this to him, the only thing that's happened as a result of Bill 218 is more expensive and protracted litigation. Because everyone knows that what happened in these homes happened as a result of gross negligence, and no family is dropping their claim because of Bill 218. So he's just made it harder and more expensive. So where is the justice? We have some small movement in the right direction from Rod Phillips recently, but for what? How are these fines going to be imposed? Is it going to come from the care envelope? We need some clarity, we need some transparency, and we need it now. The only people that have continued to benefit are those who are the shareholders of the for-profit organizations that run these long-term care homes. They are allowed to continue to make money hand over fist. It is clear that this government doesn't see any other solution than to continue to allow that to happen. We have an election coming up, people. This is an election issue, and it's an election issue because each and every one of you have made it one. Because we have all been loud and persistent, and we will continue to do that. And we will make sure that this government cannot continue to carry on this way.
Thank you. I just love all of you. And now I'm happy to present Dr. Vivian Sematopoulos, who has become a major
I'm not going to talk too long because you've all probably been sick of hearing from me.
No way.
Well, God knows I enjoy going after this government, so that's no problem. I can keep talking as long as I need to. I will. Something that really struck me today during the throne speech was when the words were uttered, and I don't have it exactly on me since I'm not Mike Ross from Suits and I haven't met her that good, but it was along the lines of, the days of letting bad actors get away with providing substandard care. And here's the best part, will be over. I don't know if you caught that, because I'm very picky with semantics. Can you hear me in the back now? Okay, so I'll yell a little louder. I'm actually very loud, so I'll get better at this. Okay, so it was very clear. You got to pay attention to the wording when they said, the days of letting bad actors effectively off the hook for providing substandard care will be over. But let's be very clear, they're not over. Nothing has appreciably changed. And I had a conversation yesterday with someone that said to me, because they saw the news on Friday and were like, oh wow, they got the mandate, everything's fixed now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this the message that's getting out there that everything's okay? Nothing has changed. Not one bad actor has been fined, not one home has lost their license, and indeed, as the ladies were just saying, many military occupied homes have been provided licenses and are in the process of being provided 25 to 30-year licenses. So another generation of seniors can be traumatized by a pattern of clear preventable error contributing to death. And the fact that, no one is being charged. We have the mechanisms in place to go after these bad actors. So I keep hearing words that are devoid of action. I keep hearing promises that are empty. And we're just so sick of it at this point. When is it going to change? When are these families who stand up here and have to be re-traumatized talking about what they went through, which was the worst hell that they will ever experience, make no mistake, and they will live with this pain for the rest of their lives. When will they see a lick of justice? Every day, you know what they feel like? They feel like their loved ones, their graves are being trampled on, that their graves have been spit on by a government that has watched what has happened and done nothing to actually change this system. So I want to know, and I've been asking this question for quite some time, and I'm not going to stop asking it, when is Premier Ford going to actually do something? When is our Minister Rod Phillips actually going to fix the problems that have been plaguing the system for a very long time, but particularly exacerbated during this government's reign of, let's say, long-term care terror? So I'm going to leave it there, because I can get angry, and I'm going to get angry if I keep talking, because I just think about all the families here today that I've talked to quite a bit, and the pain that they've been through. And all I care about right now is seeing something happen. So I'm really happy, and I'm thankful to Natalie and everyone at the Ontario Health Coalition and all the coalitions and the NDP, because the NDP has been amazing at really standing by us. And thank you for showing up today. And I just really want to see something done. So thank you so much for coming out.
We have 2 flights of people left. And we would be wrong to have this event and hear from the families and not hear from the workers who have lived through this special kind of hell over the last year and a half and have kept going in despite the risk to themselves and their loved ones, and who really just do hold things together despite far too few bodies. And so I just want to call up a few people. My good friend Katha Fortier, who is the assistant to the president at Unifor in charge of healthcare, Candice Rennick, who is the treasurer at QB Ontario and was actually an RPN herself and worked in long-term care for many years, Tim Deelstra, who comes from the UFCW, and Karen Vaughn, who is an RN who works in the front lines in long-term care right now. And so these are the workers from their point of view, what's happening.
Thank you very much, Natalie. And I first want to express my condolences to so many that are here today and at rallies across the province who have lost a loved one in long-term care to COVID-19 or the other issues as Natalie has spoke about. But I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for channeling your grief and for standing up today and for saying we will not let this happen ever again. We have had enough. Care takes time, and they are determined, and we now have an army of people that are behind us wanting to improve the conditions in long-term care. So let me tell you, we represent thousands of long-term care workers. Let me tell you what's improved in long-term care over the last 18 months, and in fact over the last 38 months or so of this government in being in power. Absolutely nothing. There's no full-time jobs. They've created no full-time work, they've not improved any staffing levels, and they've done absolutely nothing to attract thousands of personal support workers who have left the industry to come back. Not one thing. If you listen to Minister Phillips, the only couple of times that he's actually spoken out about long-term care, he's got one solution. The thousands of PSWs that have yet to materialize, and temporary foreign workers. Now let me tell you why they would like temporary foreign workers. Because first of all, that'll bring them a workforce that the for-profit operators actually are requesting from the government, because they like to have frontline workers who are afraid to stand up for their rights and afraid to stand up for their residents. That's what they want in long-term care. And we're here to say, hell no, Rob Phillips. You certainly need to staff those homes properly. You need to create the conditions of work that will create the conditions of care. It's not hard to do. Create full-time jobs. Stop paying thousands of dollars to agency workers. Stop paying thousands of dollars in overtime to current staff. Create full-time work with benefits, with paid sick time, and those workers will come back. They cannot continue to work like they have. They work short every single day in a long-term care home. So instead of being a personal support worker for 10 or 11 or 12 residents, they're responsible for 16 or 18. Imagine that. Imagine a nurse, instead of 30 residents to care for, to do their dressings, give them their medications, to do their assessments. They're going to care for 60 on a day shift. This is an unreasonable expectation, and I can tell you that Unifor will fight alongside the families, the coalitions, the advocates, and we will not stop until we have good, proper care in long-term care facilities. Care takes time. Solidarity.
Okay, thank you very much for being here, everyone. I'm Candace Rennick, the Secretary-Treasurer of CUPE Ontario, representing 40,000 long-term care workers across the province. And I want to start today by saying thank you to the families, to the residents, to the workers. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your solidarity. Thank you for your deep and profound sacrifice. You have done incredible work, and we are here today to tell you that we will not stop fighting with you until the job is done, until your family members get the respect and the dignity that they deserve. Over 4,000 residents, you heard it, over 4,000 residents died of COVID in long-term care facilities. 3/4 of those died in for-profit facilities. And today, during the throne speech, was an opportunity for Doug Ford to send a signal that they would start to phase out and end for-profit care in the province of Ontario. But yet again, they proved that they have no courage to stand up to these for-profit operators, and they continue to boost up profit over care. And we have to say no more to that. There's no room for care for profit off the backs of our loved ones. Workers in this province have stepped up time and again through this pandemic. They have given so much of themselves. They showed up every single day. They did so at great risk to themselves and to their loved ones. They experienced illness and injury and trauma and mental and physical breakdowns, and some of them even paid with their life. They have given so much of themselves, and they deserve to go to work and to know that this government has their back. It is time that we finally start to address the fact that working conditions are in fact care conditions, and if we hope to improve the quality of life for people living in long-term care, then that means we have to improve the working conditions for those who are providing that care.
Making things like the standard of care that has been promised delivered, then we won't see that change in the homes and in the quality of life and the quality of living that our seniors deserve. And and we need to respect and honor those elders. So I wanted to just stand with you. Ontario Liberals have committed, for instance, to making our environments in long-term care safer by having mandatory vaccinations for healthcare workers in those settings, by making sure that we commit to a standard of care, which actually under our former government we were already proceeding with, and it's sad that it was changed under this current government. It's sad that the inspections were diminished under the current government, and that we ended up in a pandemic with the results that we're hearing about today. I want you to know that on March 11th, 2020, at the beginning of this pandemic, I remember very clearly, I asked the health minister about long-term care, and I said, what are we doing? Because at the time we thought it was a respiratory virus, and I'm a member from Scarborough where SARS hit first, right? We had the first case. And I said to the minister, what are you doing to protect the elderly, to protect seniors in long-term care? You can look it up, right? It's in Hansard, it's on record. I said, how do we protect seniors in vulnerable settings in long-term care? And, the tragedy that unfolded with COVID could have been avoided with more investment, quicker action, and putting seniors first. And it's not too late. There's more action that's needed, whether it's vaccinating in a third dose for all seniors and all healthcare workers, whether it's making sure that we have the standard of care, the 4 hours of average care, all of that, making sure that we have workers who are trained, all of the infection control, all of that needs to happen. And so we stand with you in today, and I want you to know that we're going to continue to hold the government accountable. We're going to continue to carry the message forward, and we will not quit. Seven Oaks is in my riding. Extendicare Guildwood is in my riding. Right? So we know the tragedy that has unfolded in long-term care, and we will not let this government forget. They will be held accountable for their actions. Merci, miigwech.